What do you do when your layout's not finished, but you want to operate? We're going to talk about that right now, coming up on NCT. So before I get into the operational aspects, I'd like to just introduce you to my layout operating, not my operating plan, but my track plan and how my layout is kind of designed for operation, yet is not completed. So here, these two tracks, it'll eventually be 4 or 5 tracks, is the staging yard. This represents Rouse's Point and points north, so Montreal, Lacolle, Quebec. It also represents points south, so, Port Henry, Whitehall, Saratoga, Mechanicville, Oneonta. So this is my connection to the outside world. I have a couple trains in here, southbound Amtrak, as well as a freight. This stuff is all just basically in storage. But then starting here, this section of the layout where it starts sticking out a little farther, this is the start of the model portion of my layout. And this is North Plattsburgh. So this is going to be the GP paper mill. And there was a siding here. It was a signaled siding. So that's going to be the biggest industry on my layout. It will extend here. Then we go through the city of Plattsburgh. This isn't very important operationally, other than it is a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit, which helps improve running times as far as really enjoying running trains nice and slow around the layout so that you're not racing around and then you're back where you started. Here we have BU Cabin, which is the north end of the Plattsburgh double track. It is manually controlled right now, but someday it will be dispatcher controlled and signaled. Right here we have the Armor & Co. siding. This is a relatively small industry. The yard switcher will handle doing that job. We have the double track continue around here into the unfinished Plattsburgh yard, as well as there's a crossover here. I'll talk about the crossover more in a minute. Now over here is the end of the current layout. I will be extending this all the way around to the staging yard, and it will form a connected loop. And that will be the idea of the operation. There'll be a Y over in the other corner. This third track here that's down on lower roadbed, this is the barracks track where southbound trains would set off or pick up cars. I'm also going to be modeling Bluff Yard, where southbound and northbound trains would set off or pick up cars, as well as the Plattsburgh local doing work there as they head south to the Chateauguay and Dannemora branches of the railroad. So obviously my layout is not finished yet, but I am also working on operating already. So you may be wondering, how can I do that? Because obviously I have the staging yard partially constructed, so that definitely helps with the north end of staging, but I obviously can't run southbound trains into here because eventually there will be a Y here. So this will serve as both staging yards. But since I haven't built this part of the layout yet, this is only the north staging yard. Hence why I only have put down 2 tracks, because I just haven't gotten around to doing the other 2. And this is really all I need. I will be probably putting in the far back track here soon, but this is the north end staging yard. So that part I have built because it's a 1x6 section. This will eventually be longer, but 1x6 is honestly all you need. This I put together in a couple hours. It really wasn't bad. So even if you aren't done building your layout, for example, if I was going to be extending my actual model portion further, build one of these, slap it on, and it will definitely help improve your operating enjoyment. Well, if you were going to be working on scenery on these sections, it's not too bad to build, and it's a place to store your trains. So here at the end of the line of the currently built layout, which is Plattsburgh. The Plattsburgh yard is right here. Again, still a work in progress, but this is the end of the 2 main lines. I do believe this is track 1, track 2. I could be wrong. I have to check the track diagram, but anyway, I have a train sitting here from the last session I had. I ended up pulling off the caboose and putting it in the yard here. But as you can see, I can run decent trains here. This is a 6-car train sitting here. Just with the caboose, it still wouldn't be fouling the crossover. Again, I'll get to the crossover in a minute, but basically I use these 2 main tracks as temporary staging tracks / fiddle tracks, and this I still somewhat use as an interchange track. If I have an extra long train I'm trying to run, either south or north, I'll often store some of those cars there. And then this is actually nearby where I store my rolling stock. because I also use this as sort of a fiddle yard, which is a British term for an active staging yard, where basically you pick up cars during an op session, put down different ones. It saves a lot of space, because obviously if this extended here, I could just park the trains there, but since I don't have that built right now, and this is kind of where I walk in and out of the layout area, I'm using this as a fiddle yard, so I'm moving cars on and off the layout, so I can originate and terminate trains basically on staging, visible staging, but it's still staging, and it allows me to run my mainline operation simultaneously, well, with having a point-to-point layout that is not finished. And again, I will be working on finishing the full loop soon, but until then, this is how I run my mainline trains with only one staging yard. The long-awaited crossover, and this has been giving me trouble for track laying. Quick thing I'll go over, just because I know I've generated a lot of interest with this. This is Atlas Track Pico turnout, and I'm using Pico rail joiners to achieve, and I do have a slight gap here just because I didn't cut it quite right. This is a pretty smooth joint here, and I'm using Pico joiners, so I do recommend, if you're joining Pico with Atlas, use the Pico joiners. Here's the package for them. They're specifically made for Code 100. They also make a Code 83, Code 70 version, but these are specifically for Code 100 versus the Atlas, which are universal. And there's nothing wrong with that, other than I just think these work a lot better. They're thinner, you don't see them as much, and yeah, they work a whole lot better with Pico. Really, ideally, I'd be using a Pico track, which I actually have here. I'm going to be cutting a small piece, putting it here, because this is Atlas track, and this joint is not great right here. But the reason I put this crossover here, when I already have the end of the double track here, that's not a very big place for a siding. And the reason for that is there will be a crossover around the corner eventually. And then obviously the double track will end over near the Y. But this is so that the Plattsburgh local can actually run around their train, so they can make transfer runs to Chazy, Rouse's Point, and still work the yard when they come back south, and can lead their train properly instead of just shoving back and forth like I used to do on my old layout. So this is not entirely a prototypical configuration. There wouldn't have been a crossover here, but I am going to end up leaving this here just because it makes operations a whole lot more fun now, and I do believe it'll add a lot even after I finish my entire loop. So yeah, that was a basic overview of how I'm still running prototypical operations with an unfinished layout. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more layout progress like Plattsburgh Yard coming along here. I've been not very good about putting out layout update videos just because I find when I'm trying to film like a time lapse or even just a progress update, it slows my overall progress down a lot. And also, this suitcase right here, big plans for this and its sister. I got two of them because that's how it worked, but stay tuned for that. Big/small adventures coming with that, and of course my big HO layout as well. So thanks for watching, stay tuned, and let's run the trains.